Welcome to Healing Conversations, where we create space for honesty, healing, and hope. I am your host, Jabu, and today's episode is one that speaks to the core of who we are as people, because it goes back to where most of our wounds begin, the home. Today we're diving into how family trauma affects children, and more importantly, how we can begin healing those deep inner wounds so we don't pass them on. Whether you've lived it or you're parenting from it, this conversation is for you. So, what is family trauma? Family trauma is any pattern of emotional, physical, or sexual harm that happens in the family system, whether through abuse, neglect, addiction, chronic stress, or emotional absence. Now let's break that down. Emotional or physical abuse includes humiliating or constantly criticizing a child, threatening, shouting at a child or calling them names, making the child the subject of jokes or using sarcasm to hurt the child, blaming and scapegoating, making a child perform degrading acts, not recognizing a child's own individuality or trying to control their lives, pushing a child too hard or not recognizing their limits, their limitations, exposing a child to upsetting events or situations like domestic abuse or drug taking, failing to promote a child's social development, not allowing them to have friends, persistently ignoring them, being absent, manipulating a child, never saying anything kind, expressing positive feelings or congratulating a child on successes, never showing any emotions in interactions with a child, also known as emotional neglect. I know this sounds familiar. A lot of this sounds familiar because in most of our homes, this happens, and sometimes we say, this is how we relate as a family. But when you look into how the children in that family develop, you realize that they're broken. They're broken and they're hurting. Emotional or psychological abuse is usually not taken seriously because it's mostly what is not done, but it has such serious consequences on the human being. Let's look at physical abuse. This is deliberately hurting or injuring a child, which includes hitting, shaking, choking, poisoning, scalding, or burning, drowning, suffocating a child. The other form of generational pain or trauma we'll look at in the family setup is sexual abuse, which is called incest. This can be parents, siblings, cousins, step parents, or others within the household or extended family, whether they're related by blood, adoption, or marriage. This includes rape or attempted rape, fondling or unwanted sexual touching, forcing or coercing the victim to touch the perpetrator, exposing genitals, masturbating in front of the victim, forcing the victim to watch pornography, inappropriate sexual conversations or comments, sexual grooming. This is building trust with the intent to exploit. using emotional manipulation to create a sexual or romantic dynamic, and also covert incest. This is treating a child as a surrogate partner or emotional confidant. Um, it's interesting to note that with sexual abuse, it's not just physical, even just things like masturbating in front of the child, or exposing genitals, or um, inappropriate sexual um, conversations or comments, forcing a victim to watch pornography. All that is um, regarded as sexual abuse because the child is not yet ready um, to see or hear that level of sexuality. And thus, this is qualified as sexual abuse. Family trauma is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's the silence, the unmet needs, the tension in the room, the words never said. And the children in the families, they feel all of it. We might think that they don't, or that they're too young to understand, but they feel all of it, even when they can't name what's going on or what they're feeling or what they're seeing. They still experience it and it affects them. Children interpret the world through relationships, especially with parents or caregivers. So when those early bonds are unsafe or inconsistent, they begin to form beliefs like, I'm not good enough, love has to be earned, my feelings are too much. This doesn't just fade with age. These wounds become patterns, like people pleasing, emotional shutdown, fear of abandonment, trouble trusting or connecting deeply. And if left unhealed, they can affect your adult relationships, parenting, and even your faith. Exposure to toxic stress changes the way a child's brain is built. The area that controls the fight or flight survival mechanism over, overdevelops, while areas that control emotion, cognitive thinking, and an understanding of risk and consequences are stunted. So when children are exposed to toxic stress, it shows up in their adulthood with them failing to make good decisions. And you see someone who was raised in a home that seemed to everyone else on the outside an okay home, but had toxic stress in it that was not dealt with. And they're failing to make good decisions as an adult. And we wonder, what's going on with this person? Why can't they just make the right decision? Why can't they just do the right thing? It's because that part of their brain did not develop. It was underdeveloped when they were a child because of the toxic stress they were exposed to. The changes to a child's brain caused by exposure to toxic stress can lead to significant behavioral changes. The overdeveloped fight or flight center seeks calm and pleasure through things like food, drugs, and sex. The cognitive center is less prepared for academic success. The part that controls risk or consequences is not prepared to make appropriate decisions. Abuse can make a child feel unwanted, unloved, worthless, and flawed. This is according to research done by Iram Rizvi, and the research was called Parental Psychological Abuse Towards Children and Mental Health Problems in Adolescence. Many, if not all of us, are carrying wounds that didn't begin with us. Maybe your parents didn't know how to love because they were never loved well themselves. It's not about blame, it's about awareness. Because when we understand the patterns, we can choose differently. We can interrupt the cycle. We can heal forward. Healing is possible. Here's the truth. You're not broken. You were wounded, and wounds can heal. You can begin your healing by becoming aware of your triggers, noticing the voice in your head. How did it speak to you? When something happens, when you're triggered, what's the first thought in your mind to yourself? Speak to your inner child with compassion. Write down what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Breathe through discomfort instead of running from it. Get help when you need it. You know when you need help. Get it. Therapy, coaching, or safe communities. You deserve to feel safe. You deserve to know peace. And healing isn't about fixing the past. It's about giving yourself what you never got. And as you work through all this, you'll begin to understand what it is that you never got and begin to give that to yourself gently, but very deliberately. So if this conversation has spoken to you, I'd love to hear from you. DM me or email me directly. Also, feel free to download the free Healing the Inner Child worksheet that the link is in my bio, and begin to explore what's really going on inside of you and start healing. It's a gentle guide with journal prompts to help you start the healing journey from the generational trauma of your family. If you feel ready to go deeper, I'm opening a few slots for one-on-one coaching. Reach out and together we'll work on restoring your sense of self-worth and inner peace. Thank you for joining me on this healing conversation. Let's keep growing together bravely. See you next time.